Okay, okay, so like, really quickly before we start, we gotta give a special thanks to the Egg Paladin for making the brand new intro you guys just witnessed. Dude, like, thank you so much. I didn't ask for the new intro, but you've been absolutely amazing. I don't know how the hell we're gonna repay you for everything you've done for us.
Seriously, man, you're great.
Okay, and with that out of the way, hello YouTube! This is Melantart VA.
And this is Sakuya Amano.
And welcome to a sort of sub-series of Sonic reviews. So, like, originally we did want to review the Archie comics, but because there was so much of it and I didn't have a mouse at the time to essentially finish, like, the thumbnail, we kind of had to scrap it. But now we're going to be looking back at some of the major arcs of the comic before we start looking at the IDW comics. Sakuya, you there?
Yeah.
Okay. And so I guess we're going to start with what's effectively the Ian Flynn conclusion to the Mobius 25 years later arc, which was long and complicated, and the backstory of that is long and complicated, and we're not going to go into it. I'll probably type a comment explaining it. So,
yeah.
Yeah, so like, okay, so like, right? Okay, so like, first of all, like, this entire 6-part story was effectively written by, like, Ian Flynn, drawn by, like, Tracy Yarley, who, by the way, Tracy Yarley did a good job. He was really coming into his own here. I keep forgetting which one's male, which one's female. And the colors, I can't remember the guy's name, but I don't think he's with IDW.
It's like Jim something?
Yeah, but like, anyway, like, the first image we see is that essentially Maria's become a god or something, and like, she would not be okay with that.
No, she would not be okay with pretty much like a Vladimir Lenin-style statue in front of
like,
City Square.
Yeah. Yep, and then we see the first of our characters aged up by 25 years, Tails, and Tails is not looking good.
No, Tails, whatever happened to you, old friend? You
aged badly. You look 40, even though you're supposed to be only 36. And after this, we get to see Knuckles training his daughter Laura Sue, and honestly, Knuckles doesn't look that bad, aside from the cybernetic eye.
Yeah.
And essentially, Knuckles is now the chief enforcer for the current ruler, which in the normal timeline was Sonic, but thanks to the rewrite, Sonic kind of accidentally erased himself from history. Whoops. And so, like...
So, smooth move, X-Lax.
Yep. And so, like, a chief enforcer, that's like the chief of police or the captain of the guard, right?
Yeah.
You said, like, we were actually reading the arc that Knuckles is basically the Undyne of the Sonic universe.
Yeah. At least in this timeline.
Yeah, that's true. And of course, after Tails recruits Laura Sue, we come to what's probably, okay, like, Shadow's effectively taken over the world, and he believes he's doing good by effectively torturing people. And this is not Shadow.
No, I think Shadow might have done some questionable things, but he's not...
He's not a dictator.
Yeah, and like, he would never go as far as he did in some of the comics.
Yeah, plus, like, if you think about it, the fact that Shadow doesn't age and he doesn't get sick, he doesn't have to worry about producing an heir because, like, he could basically rule Mobius forever and nobody could stop him.
Oh.
Yeah, like, that's kind of fucked up when you think about it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then, after we get this whole thing introducing Shadow as the king, we get to see what our favorite Blue Hedgehog's been up to, and Sonic has seen better days!
Oh, yeah.
like Sonic's homeless, he's broken, and like many people actually use like oh my god, I use like this issue of like as an example of like Ian basically breaking characters, but like think about the context here. Sonic accidentally erased his children, so Sonic has every right to be upset and broken about this.
Yeah.
He's got every right to be, people. Do your research before you start making such claims. Like, it's messed up. It really is.
Yeah.
And then the issue ends with effectively Knuckles and the rest of the echidnas showing up and essentially erasing Sonic, Tails, and Lara Sue. So, okay, it's like that's it. That's the first issue. Like reading it, Sakia. What did you think of it after we read it?
That was certainly certainly darker than I expected.
Yeah, but then again, this was Archie, which was effectively based off of Sad AM, so they had every right to go as dark as they wanted.
Oh yeah.
And now and now for the next issue, which is effectively where okay, so like effectively Shadow ultimately kicks Sonic's butt since Sonic's no longer 15, he's now 40, and Shadow is still as physically fit as he was back when they first fought. So in other words, that was a bad move, Sonic. That was a very bad move.
Yeah. It's like, Sonic, know your limits.
Yep, but thankfully, Lara Sue comes along and kind of anticlimactically, she freezes Shadow in Chaos Control. Again, anticlimactic.
Yeah.
And then...
Especially when she could have beaten him in a cooler way.
Yeah, that's true. And then, of course, Sonali is reunited, and all the ship... And there was much rejoicing. Yay! And so that was, sadly we skipped a bit in we skipped a bit of the issue, but really aside from the fights and ultimately Knuckles revealing it was all part of the plan, nothing really happens.
Not really.
But thankfully next up is actually a bigger story starting with Sonic Universe number 5, which takes place 5 years after Shadow's been taken down. Sonic and Sally are parents of a pair of twins, twins who are, of course, named Manic and Sonia. And if you know Sonic Underground, you know why that's kind of a funny little callback.
Oh yeah.
And so essentially, while Mobius is at peace, there's someone who's not happy with the status quo, and that's actually, Shadow's... Oh my god. I'd like the former, special... Oh my god, I can't get the words out. Shadow's right-hand woman. Yeah. Lienda, who's actually planning a little something the next day at essentially the 5-year anniversary of when Sonic took over. And of course, at that day, what's Lienda's plan? She's not gonna poison them. She's not gonna snipe them. She's gonna shoot a giant fucking rocket at them. Yeah, 'cause that's subtle.
Yeah, right?
But thankfully, guess who comes to save the day?
Yep, Silver.
Yep, Silver is back in the Archie comics after a long absence, and we'll probably talk about Silver's debut in the Archie comics later, but Silver's back. And essentially, this time, Silver's back in the past because, like, instead of the future being covered in flames, it's instead covered in water, which is weird. You'd think that would be a good thing, unless it's like a water world scenario, you know, like that movie.
Yeah.
But that's a theory for another day.
That's just a theory.
Yeah, so, like, the next issue, it's really a lot of exposition. Like, this was, like, you're essentially a major, like, a problem with the second issue of the 4-part arc. There was way too much exposition going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, there's one, like, break from the exposition where like, Laura Sue's fighting with her cousin, but really just shouting at each other is not action for the sake of breaking up exposition.
No.
And of course, Silver gets gassed because it's Silver, and really the arc's not about him. And of course, we get to, honestly, why I'm not a Sonali shipper. The constant arguing. Like, Sakuya, what's your opinion on the whole Sonali arguing thing? Like, that was always a thing at Sad AM, but in the comics, it just seems to be at its worst.
Yeah, like I'm a Sonali shipper myself, but at the same time, I can definitely see where people, like, detractors of that ship get their arguments.
Yeah, but, like, granted, most of the Sally hate was from something years before, and we'll probably talk about that in another video, but anyway, essentially, oh yeah, that's right, the Prowers get ambushed, and of course, the kids, Sky and Melody, get away, and by the way, Melody and Sky are probably the most precious kids in this whole story. We did agree on that, right?
Yeah.
And so essentially the Prowers, Sonic, and like Alara Sue decide they're gonna go see a friend. And at the same time, Lienda goes down to the catacombs and gets what she came for. Waking Shadow back up. Dun dun dun! Dramatic reverb. And so, like, your thoughts on the first, like, half of this 4-part arc, since we didn't talk about the first one?
Honestly, like, it was really good, but at the same time,
too much exposition?
Yeah.
Yeah, like, sadly, like, the exposition, like, I get it was, I get it, it was like, just in case, like, some of the readers never actually read the previous parts of the story, but still, like, you should have summarized it a little bit shorter.
Yeah, it's like, you know, it's like, I feel like it also goes a little bit against, like, the whole idea of Sonic's, like, Sonic's meant to be fast-paced, you know?
Yeah, not, like, slowly explaining things to, like, not only to Silver, but to the readers.
Yeah, it's kind of like explain it as you go along.
Mm-hmm. But thankfully, starting with the next...
instead of stopping everything just to explain.
But thankfully, with the start of the next issue, things start picking up. Starting with reintroducing Vector's son, Argyle, who has a relationship with Laura Sue. And you said you didn't know how to feel about this?
Pretty much.
Yeah, that's like... what? Well, then again, given some of the kids from the other cross species, it's not that hard to imagine what the kids would look like.
Fair.
Yeah, plus, like, at least, like, they're close in age, so let's be glad of that.
Yeah.
And then after a quick flashback, or rather, a scene switch over to see how, like, Shadow's doing, we meet two new kids who were not who like never a thing before. Jacques and Belle de Coulette, who...
And here's kind of one of my problems with this comic, is the genetic hole.
Yeah, like, somehow Jacques and Belle have like have like a cybernetic arm and a cybernetic leg, when that's not how genetics works.
No, like, unless they got roboticized somehow, they should be fully Mobian.
Unless Bunny did this to them, in which case, why would she do that?
Yeah, as long as she's being a terrible mother, if she partially roboticized them.
Yeah, like, Ian, I think that's something you need to explain.
Yeah.
So anyway...
But unfortunately, because the Archie comics are no more, that'll probably never be explained.
Yeah. And then again, we could probably tweet Ian about it.
True.
We'll probably do that after this episode. So anyway, oh yeah, that's right. All of them effectively a charge like at the castle. Sky can't fly, which doesn't make sense. He looks like a top when he tries to fly.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Sky, you're the son of Tails. You're not the Tasmanian devil.
Yeah, that's like Tails could fly at your age. What's your excuse? Thankfully, Melody's still as fast as her mom.
Yeah.
And essentially, at the end of the issue, Shadow unleashes a creature known as Chaos. And this is like, it's a cool idea, but why? Why did you do this to Tikal, Ian? Why?
Yeah, what did Tikal ever do to you, dude?
Yeah, like... I know at least, like, 2 people who would be pissed about this, considering both of them are massive Tikal fans.
Yeah, and Tikal's like my second favorite character, so it's like... I also take it a little personally.
And so, essentially, at the end of the issue, Chaos becomes effectively perfect to Chaos. And that's the end of that issue. So, like, what were your thoughts on the issue? Like, it was obviously better in terms of exposition.
Yeah, like, it had just the right amount of exposition, at the same time it didn't, like, drag the story.
Yeah, like, at the same time, everything kept moving. There wasn't basically a talking head scene like there was back in part 2.
Yeah, and it's like, again, it's like, I get the idea behind the exposition, but it's like, again, this is Sonic, a franchise known for going fast. Like, the plot also usually went fast.
And now, on to the final part of the story. And like, first things first, for some reason, Jacques and Belle suddenly switch color schemes. That's like... Guys, who on the coloring team decided to suddenly switch their color schemes out of nowhere? That doesn't make any goddamn sense.
No.
And of course, for some reason, they suddenly switch accents as well. Again, that's like, can we have a little bit of consistency, please?
Yeah.
And then we flash back to the chamber where Chaos was, and Shadow is somehow wrapped in a bubble of air, and it's like, wait a minute, since when could Chaos Energy do this? I don't remember this ever being a thing over the course of all the issues I read.
Yeah, it's like when did Shadow become a droideka from Star Wars?
Yeah, pretty much. And sadly, that's the last time we see Shadow over the course of the entire issue and the rest of the story arc. We do not see Shadow again, which is sad because, like, we don't know if Shadow was ever stopped and properly brought to justice. We don't know. And that's...
Which is sad. Like, it feels like... Yeah, which is sad because it feels like it was left on a cliffhanger.
Well, yeah, like, not a massive cliffhanger, but a small cliffhanger. and like, I'm sorry, but honestly, like, the like to chaos boss fight, or rather to chaos fight. How do you make a fight against essentially a hybrid of like Tikal and Chaos? How do you make that boring?
Yeah, that's like one of the most exciting fights in Sonic history.
Yeah, sadly, like, Ian's biggest flaw, especially during like the Archie days, the guy does not know how to write action.
No. That's a good storyteller, but
yeah. And like weirdly, like right before the final hit, to Chaos blasts Sonic, and he somehow survives. Like, there should be nothing left of him except maybe the singed crown and the singed shoulder pad, but that's all that should be left of him.
yeah. And maybe like charred bones.
Yeah, but other than that, there should be nothing left of Sonic. Granted, I'm not begging for Sonic's death, and also this is Sonic, logic doesn't exist, but still.
Yeah, a little bit of sense to be nice, please.
Yeah, pretty much. And like, Asakuya, would you like to describe the Deus Ex Machina victory the comic kind of pulls out of its ass? Go ahead.
It's like it was that forgettable that it's like I already forgot.
Essentially, the twins end up defeating to Chaos. The Royal Twins. And that's like, really? Fucking really?
Again, I just forgot because it was so anticlimactic.
Yeah. And essentially, the comic and this entire story ends with like the future freedom fighters being founded. Sonic's gonna run it, and that's the end of it. And we never visited this time period ever again. We never got to see what happened to Shadow. We never I saw like how the kids matured. Nothing. This point in time was never returned to. And it's sad, really, because like Mobius in the future, I love reading about Mobius in the future, knowing what became of the characters we know and love, and meeting new characters.
And just like seeing what happened to poor Rotor.
Yeah, like Rotor did not have a fun time. But anyway, final thoughts on the arc itself, Sakuya, since we've now covered everything.
Honestly, I feel like it could have ended a lot better, especially because of the fact that, these comics were my childhood.
Yeah, plus, like, again, there is, like, a minor cliffhanger with Shadow never... with essentially Shadow getting away with nearly drowning the kingdom.
Yeah, and just essentially just getting away with his atrocities in general.
Yeah, so like, Ian, buddy, if you're listening, I'd like to know what was planned for the future, no pun intended, of this plot line. If you're listening, please tell us what you had planned, so we know like what happened.
Please, Ian, if you're listening, explain how that whole half cyborg children thing works.
Yeah,
like if that was just an oversight, if Bunny partially roboticized her kids,
or if you're implying that like Robians, as they're called, technically pass like the cybernetics onto their children. That's something I'd like to know, because if that's the case, that would be interesting.
But again, how would that even work? Because again, robotic parts are synthetic. They're not naturally occurring.
Yeah, that's true. So anyway, guys, I'd say give the arc a try, but honestly, like, do not expect, like, Sonic Adventure 2 levels of storytelling.
No, no, story writing to this arc is bad, but it's like the Archie Sonic comics definitely have much better arcs.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, which actually, next time, we'll actually be covering the second arc, which actually centers around, like, Shadow the Hedgehog and the returning Black Arms, known simply as Shadowfall. I'm Melantart VA.
And I'm Sakia Amano.
And we'll see all of you next time. Bye-bye.
Deuces.